talk about, hopefully, about what we'd call my first single on the B-side of the first single. I mean, I did do a recording once on Piccadilly Station in Manchester for 45 seconds, but that was just a version of What You Can Do About It by the Small Faces. But the disc that used to burn there on the little cubicle stopped after 45 seconds, so we got like one verse and two choruses, I think. Anyway, Linda's Just a Statue. When I've just tried to play it, and when I try and play it, I realise how incredibly fast it is. And that was one of the facets of the way music was being played at that time. I like fast music anyway, but I've just tried to play it, and I've tried to play it a few times, and it really is hard to maintain at that speed. But of course, when you're young and daft, it's dead easy to play like that. And there's an enthusiasm when you're playing as a band. You're all kind of going for it. It has its own kind of energy. And the idea is to capture that energy, that kind of energy that you're creating that you don't really know too much about, because you're kind of on a brand new set of ice skates. You're trying to make something happen, and it just happens. Sometimes you can rehearse all day and get nothing. Another day you can come in, first time you pick up the instruments, the whole thing's flying, you know. I suppose speed is one of those things that are a youthful thing. And granted, we were the youngest band in Manchester, but youth is nothing to do with about how many years you are, it's where you are as a person. I still play songs very fast now, and I enjoy doing that because it's dead exciting, because it's almost falling off the edge half the time. And I think that's fun, and I think audiences also get that. And the people who become po-faced about it are generally other musicians who are trying to find fault in what you're doing. And it's not about that, it's about whether something excites you, you know what I mean? Like you are when you watch children and they're not quite getting it, but they're putting all the energy in, and that fills your heart up. And I think that's what we have to try and do as performers. Linda's Just a Statue is probably the fastest thing I've ever written. And of course, when we used to play it live, and we were playing shows where there was lots of punks there, because we were opening for John Cooper Clarke and the Freshies, another fantastic band who you probably already know about. And of course, Who Is Innocent? That was been on the radio. But when we went to Linda's Just a Statue, the whole place used to go off, you know what I mean? Which is interesting, because the song was written 13 years before that. And I'd offered it to a band called the Rocking Vickers at some point, but they said, no, I can't see us doing that. And I was going, actually, I think it's probably perfect for you. Anyway, 13 years later, the Out said, we'll put that on the B-side, and that's really how it came about. It's good fun. It's good fun playing fast. I got an audition, or I asked to audition for a band called the Rocking Vickers, and I was playing with A Certain Kind at that time I was living in Stretford, and we were playing gigs around Manchester. So I met the guitarist's mum in Bolton, and she took me to Blackpool where the Rocking Vickers were based. Nick Gribben, the guitar player, had a sister, and it's one of those kind of love at first sight things where you see her and go, oh God, she's gorgeous. But you keep it to yourself because you're kind of not that full of yourself. And I didn't get the job, but then I used to go back and see it back and forward. Anyway, even though her name was Linda, anyway, even though the song isn't about her, I just put her name into it when I wrote it, which I was about 16 at the time. Around about that time, I was also seeing a girl in Manchester, because we had a youth club we used to meet each other. So eventually we were in a bed somewhere, you know, and her mum and dad had gone out, so we were like frolicking about as you do, like daft people, you know, when you're young. Anyway, about halfway through, we heard the front door go, and obviously mum and dad are coming back. So the picture was the girl just froze in bed, and I was stood behind the door hoping they're not going to come in. Anyway, we stood there for about, I was stood there probably about 15 minutes, and she was lying there pretending to be asleep for about 15 minutes. Anyway, eventually they must have come back for something, because they went out again, so we were able to breathe. Anyway, the song was called Linda's Just a Statue, and you can kind of work out what the words are about because one of the other things I wanted to talk about was how the single Who Is Innocent came about. about and how it was written, who was involved in it, and what actually happened for it to get onto the radio and to actually become, because I'd never had a single up until by this time I was 28, 29 when I wrote this, and so basically my first single, or the single I was involved in, was in 1979. I'd been working with a band called The Out with some amazing musicians, Brian Adamson, who'd come from Australia, David Basnett, who was a keyboard player, a phenomenal bass player called Chris Daniel, and an amazing singer. And I'm using all these adjectives to explain them because they were, right? It was a proper band. We played as a band. We weren't concerned about who shone or who didn't. We just did our best. And Joe and I were writing most of the songs. Anyway, one day I'd come home and I got this kind of 2-chord thing going and came up with a line, "Who is innocent?" So, and then the following morning I got up and I wrote the song in basically 2 hours. I took it to the band and everybody just put the parts in exactly as you wanted. Chris Daniel came up with an extraordinary bass line, which is historically, right, probably one of the greatest bass lines, anyway, for me it is. I'm not saying it has to be for everybody, but an enormous influence on the way Joy Division were recorded. Because when I'd actually met a guy called Tosh Ryan who owned Rabid Records, he heard the song and thought, that's a really good song. So we went off to a guy called Andy McPherson who had a studio in Cheadle Hugh, and it was an 8-track studio, and in a day we recorded 5 songs. Linda's Just a Statue, which is the B-side, which I'd written when I was very young, when I was 16, and 3 other songs, but also Who is Innocent. I took it over to Tosh, who was in Cotton Lane in Didsbury, and he had a label there called Rabid, together with Martin Hannett, who, as you know, was involved with Joy Division and John Cooper Clarke and Slaughter and Dogs and lots of Manchester people. And at some point later during these shows, during these things I'm doing, I'm going to tell you how they influenced the whole thing. Tosh and Martin influenced all the things that we're here in Manchester. But that's not for today. So we go and record this. We would go and record this song. Tosh absolutely loves it. So he said, I'm going to put it out, George. So I said, oh, fantastic. We're all dead excited. We're going to be on the label that John Cooper Clarke's on. But most of all, we're going to have a record, which is, everybody was putting out 7-inch singles. There were, you know, all the people that we loved who were playing around Manchester, people like Salford Jets and all these bands who were slightly older than the Punks, the Drones who were slightly older than the Punks, but they were getting involved in it. We were just a band who played music in Manchester. Anyway, what happened was, when Martin Hannett heard it, he said, I want to produce that because I can make it sound better. And Tosh said, no, it sounds great as it is. And Martin said, well, we're not putting it out unless I get to produce it. Because there was 3 people involved in Rabid Records. And Tosh's art was to promote these things, had communications with people, did all the artwork. As himself was a great saxophone player, and we'll try and get him in, if we can, at some point on one of these talks. Martin's digging his heels in. Tosh said, no, it's going as it is. And they pressed 5,000 singles. And one of those things was that they had an ear and a lead into John Peel, who was basically the spokesperson for all of contemporary music, but also any music that people consider were great. And for some reason, maybe because it's quite a good song and because it's fun, John Peel started playing it. You're so fast, that's unbelievable.